Bienvenidos, worldwide fans of the planet's hottest entertainment with tonight. Jaime En Fuego here, back for Enfuegotainment and continuing these 12 Days of Crimbus coverage. And this is going to be another bit of compare and contrast for just Christmas comedy craziness in this particular bit. So previously I did Trapped in Paradise versus The Ref a few days ago, and in this one it's going to be another film that I really don't remember very well at all in comparison with one that I don't believe I have ever seen previously, and that being none other than Chevy Chase with Christmas Vacation, to be specific, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, the third film in the Vacation franchise, and then a utter oddity from 1994, the same year that housed the two previous that I reviewed, The Ref and Trapped in Paradise, entitled Mixed Nuts, a Steve Martin film that I kind of remember coming out because I was a really little kid at that time. But yeah, so we are doing another comparison of a beloved versus a reviled in a lot of ways. And so let's just jump right in, as they all like to say in this YouTube-y terminology. But yeah, guys, so National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, they had previously done the Harold Ramis, and I want to say like 83? If I'm not mistaken, and that was the only R-rated of the franchise. And then 2 years later, in 85, boy, I hope I'm getting my years right, they did European Vacation, and they had whittled it down to a PG-13, so yeah. But then in 1989, December 1st, I think this came out, if I recall correctly, they did this entry, which for a lot of people is the most beloved, and I feel like it earns that entitlement because of the fact that it has that Christmas connotation. This was around a year before Home Alone came out, and yet it's always a cash grab in many estimations when you make a Christmas movie, but more so and more notably than any other instance when it's with like pre-existing characters and stuff. And so yeah, I also reviewed the second Die Hard film most recently, and that was another one where, like, okay, the first one, it had its Christmas connotations and there is that eternal argument as to whether it's a Christmas film or not. The second Die Hard, it's very evident that it's a Christmas film, and that's deliberate by nature, just hoping people get that warm and fuzzy feeling, even if the film does not come out anywhere near that particular holiday season. They're hoping for just, you know, additional viewership as time goes by. So, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. This is not a franchise that, I know they did two more after this. There was, well, actually, dare I say no, because there was Vegas Vacation after this that brought Randy Quaid back, and then there was like the Ed Helms and like reboot, and then there was some direct-to-video crap. But yeah, a lot of people, they really hold this one in high regard, my father included, as a matter of fact. But it's a film that, even if it was on in the background at some particular sort of holiday situation, I always gravitated more so towards like the Home Alone films and various interpretations of the Christmas Carol, most notably The Muppets, which I will probably get to talking about at some particular point before the 25th here in this crazy 2020. But yeah, man, the Griswolds. And so you've got Beverly D'Angelo and Chevy Chase once again. They're really the only constant thread, because I think they recast both of the kids in pretty much every installment of this, and this one is no difference. You have Juliette Lewis, who, it's funny, I did a Juliette Lewis like double down unintentionally with both this movie, and then she's also in Mixed Nuts, so that was a little bit weird. But and then you've also got the son recasting is none other than dude from, I recognize him specifically from, I know he was on Roseanne. I want to say he was Darlene's boyfriend, but was he on that stupid Big Bang Theory show that I haven't really watched much of any of? Anyway, yeah, so they recast the kids every time, and in this particular bit, as opposed to actually going somewhere, like with the game show winning, or with trying to get to Wally World in the first film, in this one, they are, as opposed to, like, with the exception, I guess, of going and trying to obtain the Christmas tree at the beginning of this movie, aside from that, the vacation aspect is the other relatives coming to them, and that's where the most fun of this movie entails, is the wacky casting, especially for me, of the older relatives. I know a lot of people, they're like, Chevy Chase hanging the Christmas lights, it's so funny, and the physical comedy of it. That's all fine for me, and I think this is where my beloved father, Jimmy C., lies in the same particular realm as me as far as the amusement within this. It is the extended family arrival and, you know, like various parents and, you know, just step cousins, all this weird stuff. Randy Quaid, who is for a lot of people maybe the most memorable character in this, because we had obviously seen Chase's, you know, just patriarch of the Griswold family 2 times before this, and I think, I'm actually losing the train of thought in that regard, because I think, oh boy, John Hughes, who wrote the script for this, he had actually written, it was like something published in the National Lampoon magazine, if you want to like reach all the way back in that regard. And National Lampoon was like kind of a brand of comedy that just kind of gave a seal of approval. They did Animal House and various other stuff, but so yeah, Chase's character was the established one from a couple previous instances, and in this one, Randy Quaid, he kind of steals the show, I must admit, with his just living in the RV family, and yet there's also the endearing factor with his 2 kids that, you know, they're kind of just disgruntled and pissed and disbelieving in Santa, and so there are a few endearing moments in this that I will give major credit to, most notably when Chevy Chase discovers some of that old just Christmas footage and he's watching it up in the attic, and then also where he has to, in all of these movies from what I remember, he has to have his little, like, flirtatious, stupid moments, whether it's him, like, looking at the underwear to potentially purchase for Beverly D'Angelo with the girl in the store, like the Macy's sort of place, or even later on where he's having kind of the Fast Times sort of imaginary situation with this pool that he wants to build. So, yeah, there is funny moments, but really the most resounding and timely and timeless, I should say, humor in this is the ridiculousness with the in-laws, whether it's the you know, asking the great aunt or whatever the hell she is, who has the cat in like the wrapped Christmas box, which is really funny to me. They ask her to say grace at the Christmas meal, and the meal is absolutely one of the most amusing bits in this entire film. She starts like reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. It's a joke that they come back to at the end of the film. And so yeah, that and just the interactions of everybody and the awkwardness and just this filled family sort of situation, it made me a little just kind of I don't know, reminiscent and sad in this 2020 where I'm not going to see my brothers or any massive extended family because we're not traveling. We're, you know, keeping it very low-key, and a lot of peeps just don't even want to have any sort of large gathering, let alone an intimate one, regardless of whether you're in town or not. And so this is a movie that most definitely deserves its esteem. In comparison with the previous video where we were comparing The Ref to Trapped in Paradise, this is one that I think is deserving of its acclaim and its adoration and its nostalgia. But I think that I would just hold it a little bit higher if I actually remembered it very well from my adolescence and had that nostalgia factor personally, as opposed to just seeing why it would be the case. It's got the great opening, just animated bit, and yet, man, this and the movie that I'm about to segue into, they both have this. Maybe it was just streaming on my TV and just the sound mix not being as good, but there's very goofy, Christmassy kind of soundtracks, and they're very overpowering in the mix, and they take control in these like scenes of just goofy antics and, you know, that physical comedy that I mentioned. Really, it's the awkwardness of the family interaction, I think, that holds true and is the most entertaining of National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. I definitely still give this a 3 out of 5 Fuego Fireballs. It is a bueno movie, and I understand, even if I don't relate quite as much, I understand why so many people love this one. Now we get into the second half of this review, and it's none other than probably one of the weirdest Christmas films I've ever watched, and this was a first-time watch. I know I've seen bits and pieces of Christmas Vacation, but I'd never seen Mixed Nuts before, at all. And this is done by a director, boy, I want to say Noda or Nora. Anyway, she was the writer of When Harry Met Sally. She directed two different ones with both Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan in Sleepless in Seattle and You've Got Mail. She did Sleepless in Seattle. She directed that like a year before, if I remember correctly, and that's probably why there is so much talent involved in this film. There's a lot of former SNL players, and it's very ironic to me as well in the fact that we had Steve Martin as the main star in Mixed Nuts, and then the previous film, Chevy Chase also being a, in Christmas Vacation, also being a former SNL, just a very noteworthy sort of personality and stuff, and with the Weekend Update and whatnot. But yeah, so Steve Martin is our main dude in this one, but I mean, the supporting cast in this is pretty ginormous, although it's kind of amusing to me that you've got Parker Posey and Jon Stewart like mentioned in the opening credits when they're in it as these like renegade rollerbladers for like maybe 2 scenes, and then you've got La Puglia, God, I'm trying to remember dude's name, his first name at least, but he was also in Empire Records. He's a handsome Italian dude, and he is a love interest and father-to-be, presumably, although they do hint that that might not necessarily be the case at one particular point with Juliette Lewis. Juliette Lewis was in both of these movies that I'm talking about today here in the Crimbus coverage, and so yeah, she's 7 months along. It's Christmas Eve, and yeah, she has that Rita Wilson, I believe, is the name of Tom Hanks' longtime wife, who was in this, and kind of a love interest of Steve Martin, our lead. But you've also got Adam Sandler in a small role in this. You've got Gary Shandling. There's a few others, including the guy on the couch from the Half Baked, which would come out a couple of years after this. But this is another bomb, just like Trapped in Paradise, that came out the same December 1994. They spent money on it and barely recouped it. Both critics and audiences were not about a dark Christmas comedy, PG-13, but yet pushes the PG-13, dare I say. It really does, because it's about this help hotline called Lifesavers that are basically, their nonprofit is all about suicide prevention. And of course, people, if they don't have loved ones around, it probably heightens the suicide possibility, if it's Christmas time and, it only comes once and yeah. But I can definitely understand that that's more of a hot button sort of take. And it's a California movie. Their place is like right close to the boardwalk and whatever. But yeah, so it like Steve Martin is getting dumped. Julia Lewis is trying to dump in turn her main person. Rita Wilson is kind of, lovelorn and hung up to a degree on Steve Martin's character, and it's like, oh, you're so much better on phone than in person. And I think Madeline Stowe is in this as well. Liev Schreiber in his first major on-screen appearance, if I'm not mistaken as well. And I can see where this was ahead of its time with some of its dark comedy. There is a person who commits suicide early, and they call, and they're on the payphone, and they've got the revolver, and they're like, oh, after the gunshot, they're like, oh, they always call back if they still want to talk more, and there's no callback. It's that sort of film, and yet, once again, PG-13, man. This is such a weird film, and it even gets its name, Mixed Nuts, from, there was one line of dialogue earlier in the movie where Steve Martin mentions that there was somebody they were trying to console at one particular point who ended up getting run over by like a big delivery vehicle that was carrying Mixed Nuts. That's where we get the title. This movie's bad, man. This is one that actually is very deserving of the vitriol and like the whole what the fuck sort of situation. And Liev Schreiber's character, ahead of its time in the degree that it is it's basically a, pre-op, you know, kind of like cross-dressing male, presumably. And yeah, there's some interaction with both Steve Martin's character, with Adam Sandler's character. And Adam Sandler being in this, he's got some very amusing little musical bits that I assume were ad-libbed with the ukulele. But aside from that, he was still so early in his career, and it's crazy to see how young he looks. This is right around the same time he was, I would imagine it's like the Going Overboard, whatever the hell the name of that movie was, which I think he did even before Happy Gilmore, but it's right around that time for him. And so not established, still like very fresh in the Saturday Night Live days. And I don't know if he was still on the program and not and whatnot, but you know, whatever. This is a film that is disjointed, poorly scripted, all over the place in its tone, and it can't really figure out in a lot of ways what it's trying to be. And so in that regard, while I did have some chuckle moments, I will not deny that, I had more fun with the previous presumed bad movie in Trapped in Paradise, the Nick Cage, Dana Carvey, John Lovitz that I reviewed in my previous Crimbus comparison review. And yeah, this is one that I definitely have to say Malo, man. This is a 2 out of 5. I won't go as low as saying it's feo, it's an ugly, bad movie. It's not like a 1 or a 1.5 or anything like that, because Steve Martin does still amuse me in a few scenes in this, as does some of the, like, Liev Schreiber and his scenes with Steve Martin, especially the dancing scene and some of the dialogue. I mean, there are some chuckle moments, but it's definitely, it's a very weird film to be a Christmas movie, and I like Christmas dark comedies like the Ice, it's not the Ice Storm, goodness, the Ice Harvest is the one that I'm thinking of, and I mentioned this previously. It's the one with Billy Bob, John Cusack, and so I like dark, kind of violent-y, weird sort of comedies in this holiday regard, but man, Mixed Nuts is just a strange movie, more so than anything else. And so yeah, 2 out of 5 Fuego Fireballs, it is Malo. So that's the end of the proceedings, at least for this, until I get to some of the more recent Christmas releases like Jingle Jangle. I am also going to do a veering into the like thriller sort of fantasy variety and talk about Rare Exports and Deadly Games, both of which are on Shudder currently. But yeah, guys, I've been Jaime En Fuego, and y'all can find me on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, here on YouTube, where a like, a share, a subscribe here on my personal channel means a hell of a lot. And if you like more spectacular stuff as far as your Christmas coverage, well, it's not very Christmassy, but we still called it Christmas Time in Hell for whatever reason. But yeah, shout out to Cecil, Robert, Marcia, and Susie Von Slaughter, and check out youtube.com/The Horror Show channel. That is my main YouTube gig, where we do at least 1 episode every single day, and have for like, boy, over 6 years at this particular point. We're about to start our 7th season, and we are very excited about that. But yes, there is more Christmas coverage coming here. Thus far, I've done stuff like Happiest Season, Alien Xmas, Fat Man, and have veered into the older stuff like the aforementioned Die Hard 2, The Ref, and yeah, Trapped in Paradise. So stay tuned here, and greatly appreciated. Once again, I've been Fuego, y'all have been Rad Status, and until the Reel of Ka comes around once more, hasta luego, Cinemigos, constant viewers and readers in some instances alike. Say thank you. Hopefully we share more of this palaver sooner rather than later, and until then, remember to stay home and watch more streaming Festivus stuff. Yes, porfa.